Hey there viewers, welcome back to another episode of Ray of All Trades. Today we're looking at a Stihl 026. It is not the pro version, but the regular homeowner version. Still really good saws. It says it doesn't start. I did give it a couple of pulls. I dumped the gas out and took a look at it and put it back in. It's actually a really nice looking premix that's in there. And it was loaded with dirt and debris and everything, so I just blew all that out of there. But let's take a peek at this and see if we can figure out what's going on. All the way on full choke. What I'm noticing is that the full choke doesn't appear to be all the way on. We'll check that. She's not even trying to roll over. Let's go wide open throttle. Alright. Let's put a little bit of premix in the carburetor. Put a little bit of premix in the carburetor. Yeah, she's trying to fire over. She's trying to start, so we're either not pulling any fuel through here, through this fuel line, or this carburetor is not pumping it, pumping the fuel through this fuel line, because that impulse line that's right there doesn't have a good seal. So basically, this is your impulse line input, this is your impulse line barb, and this is the line that connects it. We may end up replacing this line or putting a little bit of adhesive around it just to make sure that we get a good seal there, because it's the piston moving up and down that puts a pressure and a vacuum in this line. It makes this diaphragm here go up and down, and is what makes fuel pump up through this line up into the carburetor. It has, I've already checked, it does have a brand new NGK spark plug in it, and it does have decent spark. I've got a hunch that it's the carburetor. Would like to rebuild this carburetor if possible. So the first thing you do, take the handle off, the top of the handle off, this flathead screw right here. You'll see why in a second. So it takes this cover off right here, which exposes this throttle rod, because you're going to have to take that throttle linkage off. So just set these aside. We're going to be cleaning a lot of that out before we put it back together. Get yourself a working surface. 2 8mm nuts or 5/16. So we're going to be pulling this carburetor out. Really the only thing that's holding it in there is the gasket itself, if there's any kind of a seal there, and then this impulse line. The rest of it should pull out. Let's go and get that fuel line off of there. and this is that throttle linkage I was talking about. So if you pull the throttle, it comes on there just like that. So, okay, what we've got is a Stihl brand Walbro carburetor. Let's take off this Phillips head or flathead screw. It's the impulse side. Most important part on here is these reed valves coming back to center, and these are not, they're not terrible, but they're also not bouncing back to center like they're supposed to be. There's a screen right here, and it's completely plugged. So that's where that's the last screen that the fuel gets pushed through before it comes out and gets introduced into the carburetor. So that's completely plugged. That would definitely stop us. And what I'm not seeing is I should have seen fuel inside this carburetor when I was taking it apart. So either this part of the pump, right, which is this segment right here, was not flexing, or it was not being driven through this impulse line that could be clogged. Or the passage that moves our metering diaphragm is not working, or kind of like what we're seeing right here, the metering diaphragm is really not doing anything. It has like a funny vacuum to it. They usually get clogged up and stuck, but yeah, it's completely dry inside here. So as this metering diaphragm moves up and down, it pushes on this valve right here. This valve has a spring underneath it, or this arm has a spring underneath it. It moves this jet open and closed. So it pushes down, opens up the jet, and allows fuel to come through the screened area, through that jet, past that needle. So, and then gets introduced into the carburetor through a passage, through that jet right there. So I think we just need to put a kit in this thing, and probably needs an ultrasonic bath. If I prefer to give it an ultrasonic bath, because there's probably some passages inside here that are clogged. You can use a carb cleaner can and get a lot of this cleaned out. And put your finger on top of the arm so that it doesn't come flying out. Pull out this screw that looks going to look a little bit different than all the rest. Slowly let that out. And you see the jet, or the needle, the return spring, the arm, and the pivot arm. Low speed is the one closest to the engine, high speed is the one furthest away. So low speed, to count them in, so half, one, so it's 1 1/4 on the low speed jet. You're counting those so you can put them right back the way you found them. Alright, there will be a half, almost a full. So 1 1/4, and then about 7/8 of a turn on the high speed. Let's get these parts into the ultrasonic cleaner, give it a bath, and come back and try to reassemble it, see what we get. Alright, so fresh out of the ultrasonic cleaner, let's rinse it off real quick. We're going to lightly push some air through this. Still haven't got this gasket off. Let's get that one removed. Okay, so what I found, matched up my gaskets. All right, got that one. This one matches. And then this gasket and a new metering diaphragm. Got all those. Got a new needle. Got a new screen. I do like trying to use the original spring when possible from the carburetor. I have been bitten by springs not working before, not interchanging properly. So it's easy to tell where this, there got a little bit of water there. It's easy to tell that this goes on this side because your adjustment speed screw, it has to push on this arm, and then also you've got the fuel pump area, lines up with that fuel pump area. So we know that the reed valve here has to go on this side of the carburetor. It has to touch that side, so obviously that doesn't match up. See, the reed valves don't cover any holes. That looks like a pretty good fit right there. Same thing with here. If we put this on backwards like that, the reed valves won't be able to move. So when it's on correctly, the reed valves should be out in the open. That's a reed valve right there, one right there. Okay. And then this has like some divots and a screw hole to tighten it up. So if it's on there properly, it should seat. Y'all almost let me do it. I was supposed to put this in first. So that's the screen. The screen, the filter. Use a 9/32 drill bit, the backside of one, to help you push it down into place. It just seats down in there, and then the friction just holds it in place. So, backside of a 9/32 drill bit. Now, I should be able to put this on. Get that good and tight. Okay. Now this next one takes 7 hands, and none of them can be bigger than the size of a doll. So just kidding. It's just a little bit tough to get in there. So this spring drops in that groove right there. So the spring stands up. This lever has a dimple that holds that spring. So it's the one that pushes into the spring. That's how you'll know which side's up. There is a groove for the needle to drop into, and somehow you have to get all of those to line up and not fall apart at the same time. It's pretty difficult, for me anyway, to do it on camera. You can basically maneuver your fingers so that you can grab multiple pieces at one time. So once you think you've got it in place, take the one screw that looked different than all the rest, tighten it up. All right. Okay, if it's correct, this will have a spring effect, so it'll bounce back up. You will be moving this needle. It will move without being locked in place because this rod right here is centered up. And there's a tool for this that comes right across here that has a measurement down to how to adjust this. You adjust this for the amount of flow, fuel flow. But basically, if you're measuring across from this level to here, they should be just about flat coming across. But there is a tool for that, and I will try to link that in the description. The next part would be our gasket on that side. And then our metering diaphragm. So just put that back on. So this is the engine side, motor side, low jet, high jet. You guys remember how many turns I was supposed to have? Seven eighths and 1 1/4, right? So on the high jet, turn it all the way in. Let's get these lined up so that the spring is in place. So when I say bottomed out, I mean just so that it just touches the bottom. You're not trying to tighten anything. So all you want to do is you're turning this screwdriver with your fingers basically until it just stops turning, like right there. And if you're in doubt, just back it up a little bit and then turn it in again. Once you hit the stopping point, you know you're done. Alright, so right there, let's go 1/2, 1, 1 1/4 for the low jet, 1/2, there's 1, and it wasn't quite a full 1. That gets us back. We're still going to adjust this thing, but that gets us back to where we were. What I was trying to show you guys earlier is that this rod basically drops in like that. So, all right, let's get it back on the saw. So she goes on just like this. If you've got a lot of play there, I thought I had more play than I actually do, but if you got a lot of play there, you can put a little bit of a 1184 right here on the end. I don't think we need it on this one. And then this right here is your gasket that seals up against your carburetor. So let's just slide those bolt holes back up. Pull our fuel line out of the way so it goes over the top of that. Might have to move our ignition wires, it's actually your kill wires, out the way. And then once it's close, gotta fuel line pushed over to the side. Once we're close and we're lined up down here, go ahead and push that carburetor all the way on. And let's get this fuel line put on. Alright, so I used a screwdriver to open up the throttle plate so that I can put this rod, I can hook it on inside there just like I showed you guys. And then this end of it goes on to that hole right there. So, and then you should be able to verify, putting that on there, you should be able to see your throttle moving inside there. Okay. When we go to put this, I'm going to blow some of that out of there. When we go to put this cover back on, we'll have to hold this in place when we do that. Right, just to make sure we don't get anything inside that carburetor. Let's put, here, I'll show you guys the choke real quick. This lever right here closes that plate, and some of the aftermarket air filters don't do a really good job of closing that. So it's one of the things to keep an eye out for. If you replace your filter and all of a sudden it doesn't want to do a cold start anymore, it's one of the things I was looking at to see. Let's see how this one lines up. And I'll show you what to look for. Okay, remember I said this right here is in the shot. Yeah. This right here is that choke lever. For it to engage, it has to flip up here. That's how you engage that choke lever. So, if you have the choke to start it, you know you've gone all the way down to the full choke position. This should be pushing up on this lever right here. And then when you pull down one position, that should. Alright, so let's just put a dot or a line on here, just a make-believe one, right? So right now there's nothing pressing on this lever, so we're going to say that that line is there. Agree? And then if we had the lever all the way up, we're going to say it is there. Just eyeballing it. My line might be a little bit off. Let's put this on and see if that choke lever is doing what it's supposed to do. Didn't look like it was moving far enough to me. Okay, that one was correct. Yeah, that one's nowhere close to fully engaged. Of course, it doesn't feel like it moves up any further either. Anyway, let's try to start it, see how she runs. If not, we may end up going back and getting an OEM air filter. And you can see why. So, because if it doesn't close that off, it's not going to start well anyway. I'm glad that popped out so I can show you guys how this works. This right here drops into those two grooves, and it's a trigger lock. It's your dead man safety, so that this trigger can't come in if this isn't depressed. So you have this spring right here, which you're going to go underneath that guide. So we're going to grab that spring, put it under that guide, drop this into these two grooves here, here and here, right? And if it's in the up position, this trigger should not be able to move. And it looks like I think this one is actually messed up. Alright, so remember I had that that bar going in there. This little groove here has to go up in there. And I think I have to take the air filter off to do that. Foot on the front of this, it's going to drop into that groove down there. I'm holding the dead man switch in. That's over the top of that spring. I drop it down into that groove for the trigger. It sits in there just like that. Now, if your dead man switch is working properly and you got all the pieces, the trigger won't depress unless this is pressed. So this one's actually worn out, and it's to keep you from revving it up accidentally. Let's get that screw put back in. So I'm holding that handle down. I'm not sure at which point the camera died. I ended up having to pull the air filter off to get this handle to go on. So I didn't do it just for the screen. I actually did it for because that's the only way I could get it to work. Alright, now that's on there. I have no problem using a lot of aftermarket parts if they work. It's when you run into situations like this where they weren't careful. I think it needs a new air filter. Something else that will stop that from going is a plugged up fuel filter or collapsed fuel line. And I don't think we have that problem, but let's take a peek and see what we got. So idle up and open up the two jets a little bit. There's two of them. that's it, guys. That's the Stihl 026 carburetor rebuild. And what to look for when you're rebuilding them. And it's pretty easy. Doesn't take too long. Just tried to show you guys how to adjust them at the very end. Brought the idle up and adjusted my screws. I tried to go with one turn out from bottomed out on both jets. If that doesn't start off like it didn't for me, a little bit in, a little bit out until something rolls, and then work with it. Get your chain moving quickly with your idle adjustment screws, and then go to your low jet, adjust for highest RPMs, go to your high jet, adjust for, it doesn't sound like it's running away, it has that burble at the very end, richen it up. So if it sounds like it's over revving, keep richening it, which is opening it up counterclockwise until you finally get a good burble going on. And burble is, instead of just a steady whine, it has a whine with a little hiccuping in the middle. I don't know how else to describe it. It's you'll get used to hearing it. And make sure everything's oiling, doing what it's supposed to do, clean it up, should be good to go for a while. So thanks for tuning in, guys. If you got anything out of the video, I really appreciate it. Thumbs up, subscribe, helps the channel tremendously. Catch you on the next one.